Hello, everybody. Is it possible that another week's gone by? It seems like I was just talking to you folks. Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Moohead. Hi there. And joining me in the studio today, Derek Frisbee from DF Sports, Peter Powell, and the Double Penetration Man. And that means that everything that he says, the sheer weight of his arguments are like doubly penetrating, and Brian from Arizona. And the weather is going to go haywire in the north of this country, the northern part of the country. I'm in Florida, and we're going to have a low of 36 degrees tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. I mean, you don't see that in the middle of March down here very much. So
y'all are going to be wearing double winter coats.
Yeah, up there, you're going to
what
hit
winter coats?
Yeah, you're going to get
don't
hammered
sell
with snow, I think.
Yeah, we already are.
Oh man, unbelievable. So, today's show, I want to catch up with some of the latest news. Reports coming out that the Browns are actively pursuing Amari Cooper, which is all well and good. The scenario there is twofold. Will they release him? And if they don't release him, will they trade him? And what will they trade him for? Information from sources online suggests that third and fourth round picks might get the thing done. However, that if it goes to a point where he is released, the Browns may not have a situation where they can sit on their hands, because the Miami Dolphins are interested in Amari Cooper. And if the Browns don't trade for him, there is likelihood that Amari Cooper will go back to his hometown where he's from to play the back end of his career. So that's, I think that's a lot of the thing that people don't understand is you got to have, big balls to be in a front office and to stand and live and die by the decisions that you make. And here's a situation where you need a receiver. And here's a guy who I think 4 out of his last 5 or 6 seasons, he's had over 1,000 yards in receptions. It's somebody that you should be interested in. But then it comes down to, well, if he'd rather be in Miami, does that mean he's not going to be giving full effort if he's in Cleveland? Because we just went through that with OBJ, who clearly wanted to be in Los Angeles before the Browns traded for him. And that's where he was going to end up come hell or high water. So these are things, can you get the most out of a player when deep down they're being traded someplace that they don't really want to go? At the same time, Cleveland is a place that a lot of people don't really want to come to because it is cold, it is old, it is Midwestern, it is not coastal. It's not an easy sell when the city is not the city of champions. Let's just put it that way, okay? So you're almost starting out in second, third, fourth place before you even get going. And only hometown guys like Bernie Kosar would say, I want to come to Cleveland and be your quarterback. You don't get that very often.
Baker Mayfield said that at the podium, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm the guy that will come to Cleveland and turn that franchise around.
That's right. And I think that is part of the reason why some of us don't want to give up on Baker Mayfield. But it's never an easy thing. And I guess from my perspective, Amari Cooper, all of the other veterans are being re-signed and being franchise tagged, and everything is heading in the direction of the draft. And free agency is not, you're not going to get the kind of impact player, perhaps, that you would get when you get a young guy if you hit it right and pick the right young guy. Amari Cooper, is he a number one receiver?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He was on the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, and
I think he was he was on his team at Alabama too.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that it's good that the Browns are pressing forward on this, but if he is released, and God only knows, for the Browns have 2 third-round picks and 2 fourth-round picks. For a third and a fourth, if the Browns don't go in that direction, I think they're probably crazy. All right. And that'll be the first time where I'll kind of scratch my chin and wondering about what the front office is doing rather than panic like we've got all of the Baker haters doing on social media, literally now bad-mouthing the front office for no good reason because nothing has happened yet. And we'll see. But
are you buying the...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, are you buying... I know it's a little bit earlier in the process, but we did see the whole J.J. Watt and Mary Kay like, oh, he's going to come to Cleveland. Are you buying this report that the Browns are going after Cooper, or you think we're kind of just being used?
No, I look, I mean, I think the Browns are interested in him. But again, like I said, in free agency, it is an open market, and you know, you're gonna try to get, and what they say they'll take a third and a fourth may not be what they're saying in private. All right, I don't know that, but you milk the best offer, and if you can't get a decent offer for the guy, then you just bounce him and save, in their case, $16 million off the cap. And that's how it goes. And then he becomes a free agent and he goes to Miami. That's what I'm telling you. Now, Miami has its own issues because having lost their coach and having a quarterback there who, I don't see how anyone could say that Tua is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, although I'm sure that there will be some pushback on that too, based on some of the things that I'm reading on social media. Be that as it may, yeah, I believe they're interested, but do I think that a deal is this close? No. I think that they're hanging this out, and I think they're going to release him if they don't get what they want. And then once a player becomes a free agent, it is very difficult. Ask Jadeveon Clowney how hard it was for him to swallow his pride and come to Cleveland to resurrect his career. And watch him leave as soon as the money hits the table. Just watch it happen. That's why I'm telling people, you know, if I were in the front office, I'd be talking to the Emmanuel Ogbas of the world. They're going, oh, it's too much money. And it's like, you know something? You have no idea the money that Clowney is going to command. And let's be honest, we already know from the past that he wasn't going to come to Cleveland on 2 previous occasions when the opportunity arose. So I consider him gone. I don't, you know, it's not something that is a negative to me. It's economics. He came here. He did what he signed on to do. It was a prove it deal. And he proved it. So now he deserves to get paid. If we don't want to pay him as much as somebody else, then he's going to go somewhere else. We just got to be prepared to find the next guy who's going to be able to stop the run and get some pressure on the quarterback. I don't expect we're going to get the next Khalil Mack, Brian. I don't expect we're going to get a devastating pass rusher out of free agency. But we do need to be able to continue to stop the running game of our opponents. That becomes very, very important. So, but there's more, of course. What I'm reading is crazy kinds of stuff. And I just wanted to really take a step back and say to myself, what are the reasons? Why do we have these Baker Mayfield haters, and why is this created? And I think I have go ahead.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
I think that there is some explanation or some light I might be able to shed on this. I mean, I'm looking online, and like, this is from, the voicemail of truth and reason, uncut special.
You watch that too, huh?
No, I won't.
Oh, I did.
Well, I mean,
I did, so you don't have to.
Yeah, right. I mean, all I had to do was look at the headline. It says, our viewers vent on, and then it basically says, hear from the viewers as they give their thoughts and opinions on the following topics: Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, and then the NFL draft and the Browns offseason. It's like, oh, please, go fuck yourselves. So people are being, poked and prodded and surrounded by this stuff, and I understand that. But I'm looking at what other teams are doing. And the Washington Commanders committed suicide again. What do you want Carson Wentz for? And some Browns fans said, we should get Carson Wentz. You don't know the slightest thing about Carson Wentz. You don't know 1/10 of what I know about Carson Wentz. It's why I never bothered even posturing for this guy. This guy is a modern day Jeff George, and I've said this in previous broadcasts. His teammates don't like him. Management, coaching staffs don't like him. He has great arm talent, but he doesn't work hard at his craft. He's absent in the study room, and he's not there having the backs of his teammates. He's a me first guy. And it took 1 year in Indianapolis, 1 year for them to say, nah, no.
With his guy.
Yeah.
Frank Reich coached him in Philadelphia and during his big, outstanding rookie year.
And, and he did have a great rookie year. And I want to point out. Until he got
hurt.
Yeah, that's right. But I do want to explain to people who are going to listen to this, who are of a different opinion consistently about these things than I am, which is fine. You're allowed to be stupid and foolish if you want to be stupid and foolish. You can be educated if you listen and absorb. Carson Wentz, there's a difference between, teams figured out that quarterback, all right? And I'm going to compare Carson Wentz to Baker Mayfield. I mean, is there anybody who believes that you could play for 3 different head coaches over a 4-year period and the teams have Baker Mayfield figured out? It's like, that's not what gets figured out, folks. It's the scheme that they're running that gets figured out. It's no different than if the Cleveland Cavaliers put out 3 7-footers on the floor and it takes the league by surprise, and then the league says, we're going to attack this differently defensively by dropping men down in the paint, and we'll let Darius Garland throw the ball up and score 30 points a night, but we're not going to let Evan Mobley and Jared Allen just keep slam dunking the ball and whipping the fans into a frenzy. That's just making adjustments to a scheme. When we sit and blame one guy or the other, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Kevin Stefanski, the truth of the matter is how we utilize tight ends, the scheme of the offense, what choices the quarterback has within that scheme, that becomes important. And in different coaches that he's played for, I've not had an example of teams figuring out what Baker Mayfield's going to do. I think what you saw is Baker Mayfield running for his life when he had no offensive scheme with Freddie Kitchens. And I think with Hugh Jackson, he was, he didn't really play for Hugh Jackson. I mean, basically it was like Hugh was gone and Baker then was handed the reins. But Baker expressed everything that needed to be expressed about Hugh Jackson by beating him and then handing him the game ball. Here's another thing that bothers me. There's a video that's going across the internet of the Kansas-Oklahoma game. Have you seen this video?
Yeah, where Baker doesn't, or I should say, where the kids don't shake Baker's hands. Yeah, that was one of his best games.
Right. Now, in that section, they cheap shotted him in his throwing shoulder on a late hit, which the player was directed to do. They were really trying to act like tough guys, and Baker Mayfield offered his hand to shake their hands before the game, and they dissed him. And then, of course, Baker started talking trash back to them, including to their fans, saying, hey, what do you know? It was all mic'd up. Hey, what do you know? You only won
season.
Yeah, you only won. Yeah, you only won one game this year. He goes, go back to cheering basketball. It's like, that's what you're good for. And then grabbing his crotch in the direction of the student body of Kansas after, Oklahoma rolled over them. And when he grabbed his crotch, the announcers were saying, and that's the thing that the NFL's really going to be worried about this guy. And, he's got a lot of talent, but that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable in the NFL. And it's like, and so that's what people are spreading around. It's like, what a jerk Baker Mayfield is. Well, what do you want us to do? You got to go get Aaron Rodgers. I own you, Chicago. I own you. I mean, that's 37-year-old man. I mean, trash talking is part of professional sports, whether you like it or you don't like it.
Unless
and you
LeBron
can't be
James,
selective.
You can't handle the criticism.
Well,
and have fans ejected.
But the bottom line is that as a fan, you can't just be selective. You can't say, I want the 37-year-old asshole who's screaming at the Bears fans, the hapless Bears, for God's sakes. And my apologies to Philip Ross. I'm not bad-mouthing the Bears, but my God, it's been a long time. And sitting there saying, I own you, to a bunch of fans who are like, well, God, they're trying to come off of Mitch Trubisky, They're trying to come off of...
We've never been good since, Rex Grossman.
Yeah, I mean, and the worst part of it is that Jim McMahon can't even remember the last time they were good. It's just, but fans get focused in on this shit. And I just, for the life of me, don't understand what the deal is. And with Carson Wentz, and this is right off of NBC, this is not some idiot, that, personality issues led to the trade. And this is what happened with the Eagles as well. I mean, he just isn't a high character guy. I don't mean in the sense like, and we know that Deshaun Watson is not going to be criminally charged, and that's all well and good. We're not talking about somebody who has broken rules or things of that nature. We're talking about a guy's attitude. And, when you're a quarterback, you got guys back. And if you're disinterested, it comes off real easily. So that's what I guess I have to say about that part of things is I didn't want Wentz. I didn't want Rodgers. All right. Russell Wilson signing, or being traded to, I should say, to Denver, you can go that route. And if you asked me is the smartest thing to do to bring in a 33-year-old quarterback. That, I think, epitomizes what the fans really believe a front office's job is to do. It's to grab anyone you can grab and just go out there and try to put together a winning team at all costs. And if it goes bust, then you go bust for 5 years and you try it again 5 years from now. Problem is, we've been waiting a long time in Cleveland. And a lot of these younger fans who are part of this erratic temperament that is on social media haven't been around that long. I want to point out some things about Russell Wilson. I mean, and I am not going to tell you that Russell Wilson's a bad quarterback. I can't say something like that. That would just be grossly inaccurate. But what I can tell you is that his career got off to a really fantastic start. I mean, from his first year in 2012, when he was 11-5, the next year 13-3, and then in 2014, 12-4. The early years of Russell Wilson, they were in 2 Super Bowls. I mean, and won one of them. He's Super Bowl winner.
With the Legion of Boom.
Yeah, that's right. He had really good people around him defensively, and he got a lot of offensive weapons as he stayed on through the years. But since 2015, records of 10-6 and 10-5-1, 9-7 and 10-6 and 11-5, it doesn't inspire me to any great degree. And then a 6-8 season last year, which is obviously an outlier. But I don't want a 33-year-old quarterback coming off a 6-8 season who is going to make a hell of a lot of money and who's been a first-round exit in recent history. He still completes 62 to 66% of his passes. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Statistically, he's very good. You could say the same thing about Wentz. Statistically, last year, he was good, except when it really counted.
I think Denver knocked this one out of the park because we talk about teams who are really, and I know this gets said too much, but a quarterback away, they really had just about everything set. They just, for the love of them, could not figure out the quarterback position since Peyton left. So, sure, there might be, is Russ still good? Whatever. I think it's a home run because you bring him in to a team that's got a run game with a young star, up and comer, I guess I should say. And the offensive line, you can say Denver's line's not great, but compared to Seattle, way, way better. So combine everything they already have. Obviously, the defense is good, but you're putting Russ in a much better situation, in my opinion. So, I mean, I personally, I thought that
Russ
was
thinks so too. And it at this point, it's kind of apparent that the Seattle Seahawks have kind of turned the page. They've rounded onto the other side of the mountain. They had their good years, and now they're going into, full bore rebuild.
And they're shopping their young guys. That's what I don't understand about rebuilds. The whole point of rebuilding is to get young talent. And you're going to shop DK Metcalf?
Well, there may be reasons for all of this. And I can, tear the mother down if you can't have a quarterback in there to get the ball to DK Metcalf. And I can tell you all about that being in Cleveland, that we never had good receivers. And the reason is we never had a quarterback who had been here long enough. There wasn't any history. The Seattle Seahawks are talking about what are they going to do? They're going to trade for Jordan Love. What are they going to do? What are they going to do at quarterback here? And
they got that 9th pick. So if they I don't know, they really, and this is going to sound bad, but they liked Baker coming out in 2018. They might like Sam Howell. He's similar to Baker, better at some things, worse at some things, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they still want that style of quarterback. 9th pick, that's prime spot for one of these guys.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that what Denver did is foolish. I'm not saying that because they got the better end of it. Seattle has just gone wholesale discount here. But for Cleveland fans who are saying, well, why couldn't we get him? Because the price just wasn't that astronomical. The answer is he didn't want to come to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Do you understand, you idiots?
Yeah.
Denver was his only choice, allegedly.
Yeah. I mean, you cannot tell an agent and a player what is best for them like that. You just can't do it. They know. They know where what they're looking for, where the money is right, where the situation is right. And quite honestly, nobody's going to come to Cleveland right now. And you've got to get and build through the draft to get really good young players. That's why I just keep arguing over and over that without wide receivers, Baker will be gone, Stefanski will be gone, and
They
who
both
knows
might
if the
be gone
next guy.
regardless.
Well, if it's the next guy, it could be Freddie Kitchens in a different disguise. We've hired some horrible coaches in Cleveland. What makes you think that Jimmy Haslam suddenly gotten smarter? I mean, to me, people have to want to come someplace, and the reason they want to come someplace is like, ask Kevin Love why he wanted to come to Cleveland. And if LeBron James isn't the first thing out of his mouth, he's lying. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Suddenly, all these names, it's like, God, we never seemed to have it this easy before. And this has been like, my God, it's been like an outcast community for professional basketball in Cleveland. LeBron comes, and it's like all these players want to come. LeBron leaves, and all of a sudden, it's there with the tumbling tumbleweeds. I mean, the tumbleweeds are blowing through, the arena. It's, but you have the players, good young players, and what happens? Well, that's what happens. People want to come and be part of a winner. Nobody wants to think that they have to do it themselves. But the bottom line is Denver fans have been watching Drew Lock. They're not going to, there's no way that they were going to groom him to do anything. And God only knows what they've been forced to watch over the course of the last God knows how many years.
Brock.
Yeah. I mean, terrible quarterbacking. Fans are going to be very happy with Russell. But for
John
how
Elway's
long?
going to be happy.
But what if it doesn't work? What if Russell Wilson is on the decline?
Yeah.
What if he doesn't pick up the Denver offense that quickly after being with one guy, with Carroll for such a long time? What if it doesn't work? Then you have
the way that Greg Olson explained when he came over during the COVID season to play one of his last years, and the meeting the over-the-air meeting that he had with Russell Wilson and how he had his set up at home, it's not really going to be much of an issue for him to pick up a more basic offense like the Broncos. So,
no, I mean, and I would hey, 33 is not that old by NFL standards, and it's like I don't want to get into that argument because it's different for every player. But there are a hell of a lot more quarterbacks who lose their edge at 33 years of age than there are guys playing when they're 38 and 40 or 43, right? I mean, just take a look at the league.
Well, a lot of it has to do with arm injuries as well. Cumulative elbow and shoulder injuries. They lose their arm strength, and
right.
All of a sudden, you end up with Ben Roethlisberger last year.
So all of this talk that we have suffered through by a bunch of quarterback hating fans based on Russell Wilson, Carson Wentz, and Aaron Rodgers is anybody but Baker. And the reason is that they recognize that the team is far enough away from winning a Super Bowl that they're just willing to just put their whole pot into the middle of the table and slide it in the middle of the table and just say, well, we're going to ride with this guy. And if it doesn't work, and that's that. Then they'll go back to complaining about that they're charging more for tickets, that the Sunday NFL ticket is going up in price again, and whatever it is they're complaining about. But they're not educated fans. They're not smart people. They want something just instantly, as if it can just be whipped up with one quick deal.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
and I was just gonna say in the hall that the Broncos, they got the quarterback, which is what everyone pursues, but we're not in the same position where last time I checked, we still only have Myles Garrett on our defensive line, and we don't really have any receivers, so we still have holes, and we need those draft picks to fill up the holes in our roster.
Badly. And we tender Dearness Johnson, and what do these idiot fans say? Oh, trade Kareem Hunt. This is what makes your fan base stupid. I mean, what would the point be? I mean, first of all, I understand that Dearness Johnson has done a wonderful job. And I think that Kareem Hunt has been a good citizen while he's been in Cleveland. And you couldn't blame him for missing time. He had a bad injury. So you want to trade him. What are you going to get for him coming off of an injury? And his numbers aren't going to jump out at somebody. It's like, well, Kareem Hunt's not even a 1,000-yard rusher or anywhere quick because Nick Chubb, nowhere close. Look at Nick Chubb. He's the guy who's the 1,000-yard rusher. Kareem's an afterthought. And, the reason that Nick Chubb can do what he does is that you want him to be able to be spelled by a running back who does something differently than he does, but as effectively in the total number of yards per carry that he delivers. Why fuck with your running game if you don't have to fuck with it? Somebody's going to get hurt, and it might be Nick Chubb next year.
It was this year.
Yeah, I mean,
And then it was Kareem Hunt.
Yep, anyone can go down. So having Dearness Johnson is a necessary component as part of an insurance policy because we didn't have any kind of a regular passing game. We depend on our running game and those big tight ends moving people and the offensive line moving people. That's what that comes down to. But immediately, it's the first thing out of the mouths of these idiots. Oh, I'm gonna trade him. It's annoying. But my belief is that generation of football fan, they have no patience, they have no understanding of how business is done and how long it takes to really build something. And you will always have an example of a guy like Russell Wilson who shows up and bang, it all works out well. Just like when Ben Roethlisberger came to Pittsburgh, they had the established offensive line. So he got full protection. He had a fantastic running game. And all he had to do was throw 25 times a game, 24 times a game. And so, it was just like Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman threw the same number of passes per game as Ben Roethlisberger. When Ben was forced to throw 40 plus times a game, that's when they were losing. But these fans don't realize that. This isn't some goddamn video game. You have to have balance. And people tend to forget that it was like Terry Bradshaw had balance. You know, he had Franco Harris and he had Rocky Blyer blocking for him. And then he had Lynn Swann to go to or John Stallworth. They don't know about any of this shit. It's been that way in every decade. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, even the older Browns with Jim Brown and Otto Graham, even though I'm younger, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to understand if you open your mind that if you have one part of your team intact, it is just incumbent upon you to improve what is totally lacking. And there is no downside to going all in the draft and free agency to get wide receivers because you have a decision to make on your quarterback. By the way, Villanueva is retired from the Baltimore Ravens. He looked terrible last year.
Yeah.
And I think he looked worse than he would have normally looked if he had stayed in Pittsburgh. Two different situations, two different circumstances, but that's another one down for the Ravens as well. Yeah, everybody says that obviously Seattle lost the Russell Wilson trade. Duh. I think we all recognize that. So,
well,
does this...
maybe for the next 2 years, but not overall. I think they'll be fine.
The problem is Seattle sucks at drafting. That's been their biggest issue. So, I mean, it's fine to get all these picks and all, but hey, if you're going to waste them, then no, it's not a good trade.
You know, I look at, and again, I don't want to just pick on the Ravens, but when you lose your top front office guy, Ozzie Newsome, somebody takes over. When you're a good team, it takes a while to peter out. It doesn't just suddenly go from 60 miles an hour to 0 to a screeching halt. But as the new people take over and the bad drafts mount, then you have the Ravens saying, okay, we got to get rid of Miles Boykin. Well, that was supposed to be a draft guy, a choice that was really going to help them. And it turned out to be a bust. I looked up the history of Notre Dame wide receivers. That was crazy shit. They can't produce a decent wide receiver. Look at the history of the fabled Notre Dame football program in the last couple of decades. Nothing of consequence came out of that program.
Deshaun Geiger.
The Ravens are starting to make bad draft picks. And their advantage slowly whittled away. They hit it great with Lamar Jackson, but if they don't have people to put around him, and you can't tell me that their running game was anywhere near, and I don't care if you're an Ohio State fan, you like J.K. Dobbins. I get it.
Well, they both got injured in the preseason, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back-to-back games.
Those guys are not as good as what they had in their glory years. Let's be honest. I mean,
I don't know, because they had at the prime running back,
Ray Rice.
No, before Ray Rice. I think Mark's talking about when they first went to the Super Bowl.
Oh,
the guy that ended up on the Browns,
Jamal Lewis.
Jamal Lewis.
No, yeah.
I mean,
he was a better frontline guy, maybe, but their backup running backs were not as good as the guys that they have now.
But it's a different. I mean, it's like looking at the Steelers. The Steelers, when they had Jerome Bettis, it was all about just straight at you power, and that's the way it was with the Ravens too. Totally the same way. And Jamal Lewis was a guy who was a north-south runner, hit the hole and just take off. It wasn't a guy doing end around sweeps. It wasn't, guys who were nifty, nimble footed. It wasn't that. And you take a look at the players who are playing surrounding Lamar Jackson. They don't have the great linebackers that they once had. They kind of whiffed on a couple of linebackers in the last couple drafts.
Patrick Queen.
Yeah. You cannot, if you are lacking in certain areas, it'll eventually catch up to you somewhere else. And that's, and then once you're behind the eight ball, I think what Seattle's doing is going wholesale sellout because they're trying to avoid that long-term down period that befalls a lot of teams. Look at Denver. I mean, it's like John Elway leaves and they've been twiddling their thumbs ever since. I mean, they were desperate. They hired the quarterback who couldn't throw, who was a running college quarterback, but he was a good Christian. I mean, you have to be able to do better than to put Joe Flacco on a field when he's a statue and any bird could just shit on him. You got to be able to do better than that, but they couldn't. It's a long way to bring yourself back up. A little while to lose your edge, but it takes a lot to come back. And you look at the Bears trading Khalil Mack to the Chargers. Well, the Chargers are going to be in business now. You got Bosa, you got Khalil Mack, and you got a young quarterback there with weapons.
Mike Williams resigned.
Yep. So the Chicago Bears are trying to find their way out of this muck and mire. And it's not an easy thing to do. And the Browns are right at a tilting point where they have half of that off the offensive side of their equation, the running game and the front line, pretty damn good. But they have doubts about their quarterback. Well, at least the fans do. Front office probably is going to be looking at this coming year with great interest. But they have no wide receivers, and they know it. And they'll do something about it. Whether they find the right guy or whether they're going to be Miles Boykening, I don't know. So.
Well, and to me, I think that's the kid from North Dakota State.
Christian Watkins?
Yeah.
The next Mac.
I think he would. I think he'll be the if the Browns drafted him, he would be the Miles Boykin for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, no, what he would be, because we've seen that he would be the lawyer Tillman. I'm going back historically.
I was gonna say he's gonna be the. I was gonna say he's gonna be the next Matt Jones.
Willis Adams. Believe me, the
Well,
Browns.
Matt Jones was a quarterback who got switched to playing wide receiver.
Steve Holden. I can't tell you how many receivers. Greg Little. I can't tell you how many. And it was like they all had the same problem. They didn't catch very well.
Well, I'm
That's
sure
why
I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I don't care. My take on Flake from USC is,
Drake London.
Yeah, he's the next Hartley Dykes. A big fucking show of nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like if you talk about quarterback busts, it's like Ryan Leaf. Things look good on the surface, and statistically, you look at them on paper, and it looks okay. But they get out on the field, it's something altogether different. That's one of the reasons why I'm so high on Garrett Wilson, and I plucked him out of the bunch because there are a bunch of guys who are talented receivers. But, if you can tell me that a guy's got good hands, that he really runs, with the ability to separate because his feet are agile and his cuts are dramatic that get him in the short field open. Because let's be honest, a lot of what Kevin Stefanski does is not designed on receivers getting behind people with deep outs and double, stop and go kind of moves. It isn't like that. It's like the middle of the field becomes very important. And if you don't get separation off the line of scrimmage, then the quarterback's going to eat the ball. It's get the ball out of your hands quickly and do something with it once you catch it. And if you can't, then you've got 8 yards because you separated. And then you pound them with the running game. That's what Kevin Stefanski does. So right off the bat, give me a guy who has good hands. Give me a guy who runs a wicked good pattern. Now, you tell me that son of a bitch could run a 4.37. That was my biggest worry, is that guy's going to run a 4.52, But it didn't work out that way. But I'm not looking at Garrett Wilson to be some great kind of Tyreek Hill burner. I'm looking at him to be able to get open over the middle. Here's another one for you. Information that I'm gleaning is saying the Browns are wanting to stay with their tight end room as is.
I'm not buying that personally.
Yeah, I don't either, but
Why is that news being reported? What would the point be?
Probably to not devalue 81.
Well, Austin Hooper, you're not going to get shit for. Let's be honest about this. He's not a game breaker. He's a possession receiver. And by all accounts, in the scheme that he's been playing, and he can't get open. And when he does, it's dropping passes. Not good. But
So-
I'm just repeating what I hear.
I was going to ask, so do you really think at 13 that Andrew Berry is going to really draft because I think he should draft a wide receiver, and I think he might, but part of me really thinks he might go for end since there's just huge turnover and we haven't really hit on a mate for, I guess, Myles Garrett. So do you really think they'll draft a wide receiver or no in the first round?
Yes. I think that it would be criminal irresponsibility if they didn't. Seriously, then you're going to hear me do nothing but scream about the front office and about the ownership of the team. I don't give a shit about Myles Garrett's bookend. I could give a shit about that because if you can't score points, your defense is not going to be that good. We went through a year where we just couldn't move the ball in the red zone, and we didn't have a kicker who could kick the field goal. We gave up the football team way too many times in their territory because we didn't have confidence in the kicker to put points on the board, and we decided we wanted to go for it, then call some hinky play where nobody's open or the quarterback gets sacked. Saw it over and over again. The need is so obvious that if it evades a Rhodes Scholar Ivy League guy, then he's overthinking things and he needs to go into business somewhere that's different than football. You have to draft a wide receiver at 13. You have no choice. Because I'm telling you, if it comes down to the wire and they release Amari Cooper, you're not going to get him. You're not going to get him. And fans go, it's because of Baker. And it's like, no. Look out the window at where you live, you stupid fuck. Take a good, long, hard look. And if you envision yourself, Mr. 22-year-old, 24-year-old sports fan, if you envision yourself 30 years down the road looking out that same window, then I don't give you any value for your life. I love the Cleveland Browns. I love Northeast Ohio. I love you, Cleveland. But I don't live there. I did for a long time. I found my legs in my career elsewhere, and it took me a lot of moves and a lot of jostling to get to where I was going. But I do this show because part of my heart still is with Northeast Ohio. But I understand why 27-year-old free agent athletes don't want to come to Cleveland. I'd be blind if I couldn't see that. So don't blame the quarterback. You're working at a disadvantage to begin with. You're not a major market, and the LeBron Jameses who happen to grow up in Akron only come once in a lifetime. The Bernie Kosars who aspire to play for the Cleveland Browns, they come every, maybe 3 decades. People just don't want to jump into the fray here because the history is a history of heartbreak. And the fans don't make it any different than that. It's like they're waiting for the next shoe to fall. I don't get it. But I do get it.
No, they're waiting for Kal-El to fall out of the fucking sky and into Cleveland, Ohio, to save the franchise. That's what they're waiting for, and it's not. It's not reality.
No, and for everybody,
but they want to shit on the guy that's the winningest quarterback since coming back. They're all day for that, and they're never going to see another quarterback win as many goddamn games as Baker Mayfield. It's just not going to happen. They're all going to be one and dones. Because now you're going to get back on the treadmill of Teddy Bridgewater and Geno Smith and Gardner Minshew and Jameis Will.
Well, you're going to be drafting offensive linemen because these guys are getting old, and if you don't hit on those picks, then your offensive line goes to hell. When the offensive line goes to hell, then try getting a decent quarterback. I mean, this is all tied in together with trying to fortify your franchise. First, you have to have the frontline players to be competitive. Then you have to start using your drafts not for immediate needs, because the Cleveland Browns as an organization, thanks to Jimmy Haslam and the people who preceded him, were put in terminal debt. Think of it that way. Always trying to catch up, playing from behind the 8 ball. Never having anything in place, constantly shuffling. So there was no real chance of accumulating talent on the roster because we were constantly juggling the pieces and changing the scheme and concept every couple of years. So no foundation. You can't build a house without a foundation. There's no foundation laid. So, to me, it's simple stuff. You do what you have to do now to fix the problem. 13 has to be a wide receiver, and it has to be somebody who we hit on. It can't be, I like his upside, his ceiling. I don't want to hear that shit. But, you got to work with him on the jugs machine. I don't want to hear that shit. I want somebody who can do the job. And you got to hit on these things. So, lots of guys being let go around the NFL, and there are a lot of names, and, I can, there's going
to be a lot more.
Yeah, Corey Littleton from the Raiders and then Trey Flowers from the Lions. These are not people we're interested in. Orlando Brown getting a franchise tag in Kansas City. And like I said, Villanueva retiring. There's going to be a lot of movement. And you have to decide, I would rather have a really good run-stopping defensive end because, quite honestly, the quarterbacks are getting the ball out of their hands so quickly that sacks are far less important to me than turnovers. Because you can get your sack and be 3rd and 16, and Joe Burrow is going to hit,
Jump ball.
The 16 yards for a throwing quarterback is nothing. I mean, you can just slide Jamar Chase down the field, and he can pick that up, go up and get it, and just like easy peasy. So the sack isn't the critical thing. The critical thing is that you're putting teams in repeated 3rd and longer situations so that you have a chance of getting turnovers. But the only way you're going to get turnovers is to have aggressive tacklers and to have secondary guys who aren't afraid to jump patterns. And you got to have a defensive coordinator who's, willing to take some chances with the right personnel. It takes a lot. It's not easy.
And like every year, we need linebackers, which I don't think we're going to draft any, but we need some.
But linebackers are kind of going the way of, this is the new league. Linebackers are in far less demand today.
Still think we need like one more, because I'm not the big, like Walker, he was good, but I would like someone else next to JOK.
Well, and I would take a flyer on Bobby Wagner to replace Mac Wilson.
Yeah, he's 32, 33 years old.
It's going to cost a lot. His market's going to cost
a lot.
Huge.
That's right.
Well, it's still an upgrade.
But I mean, it's wonderful to think that the Bears really believe that Khalil Mack would do for them what he did for the Raiders, right? Different scheme, different coaches, different. I mean, he had one good year, and then, now when he gets to the Chargers with Bosa, you're going to see him unleashed.
Yeah.
A lot like Von Miller when he went to the Rams.
That's right. It's like a revitalization, a rebirth. But it's not so easy. If I'm the Browns, I want to make sure that the defense they put together stops the run. Because what kills any defense is the notion that you're not sure whether they're going to run or pass. You can't. And we know, because we've been bad in run defense for so long in Cleveland prior to this past year, that, any game, I mean, Joe Mixon could run for 200 yards against us. We watched it happen over and over again. We give up ungodly amounts of yardage to running backs. And then you'd wonder why people would bite on play action fakes and all that. I mean, you got to be sturdy up front. And my future, belief in the Cleveland Browns does not rest on Jadeveon Clowney. It can't. Because he ain't going to be here.
Yeah.
It's like, again, wake up. One last story I have to do. We talk about the things that don't make a lot of sense to us, because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, how can Calvin Ridley be getting a worse punishment than, Kareem Hunt did, or somebody who committed a violent crime.
Tyreek Hill.
Yep. How is that possible? And it's not, and I think everybody understands where I'm coming from, is that if you so much as question the arrangement that the league has with gambling institutions, that's a very touchy subject, because it's the heart of the dishonesty and the lack of integrity in the league. But now a woman is suing Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. This is interesting because the woman claims that she is his daughter. He's remained mum and silent on the thing. She's 25 years old, and she's a congressional aide. She is no bozo. And the story goes that old Jerry, got got his dick up in a dander and met some woman at an airline ticket place where you're buying your plane ticket. Must have been a real pretty woman. He got himself hitched up to that, and impregnated the woman and proceeded to pay $375,000 to this 25-year-old's mother under the stipulation that she can't talk. In other words, he Donald Trumped her. You sign the document, you can't say anything, it's put to bed. This woman could not acknowledge that this man was her father. Could not say anything. And she had nothing to do with it. She was born into this. To yourself, well, geez. You find out that your father is somebody who's very wealthy and an oil man and an NFL owner, and you're after money. Well, no. She's not even after money. This $375,000 settlement to the mother, if that's all there is and all there was, that there is a always ever present threat that if anybody spoke up and said that this was his daughter, and a simple blood work, a simple DNA test will prove this. The worst crime that I have seen yet would be committed by this asshole. Disavowing a little girl, selling her away for $375,000, not helping her at all. She's made it to become a congressional aide. She's gotten this far in life. Don't tell me about justice. I want to see this thing come out to a conclusion. I want to see this old man embarrassed just like Robert Kraft was getting jerked off. There is no integrity amongst this group of men. Figure it out.
How about Hunter Biden trying to deny a stripper that he fathered that kid, and claiming that he has no money after collecting these tens of millions from not only the Ukraine, but also from China.
But that's
And art
politics.
paintings.
That's politics. I don't know any politician, any political family. I never heard Donald Trump stand up in front of his minions or Joe Biden stand up in front of his minions and say, the most important thing to me is integrity. The most important thing is raising funds to get reelected. We know that. That's what politics are. But I hate it when a football league tries to base itself and identify itself with the word integrity and has the nerve to keep repeating it over and over and over again. When the guys who own the goddamn teams are doing shit like this, to me, it is...
But we learned all of this. If you just watched North Dallas 40, you learned everything you ever wanted to know about professional sports. It doesn't
If
matter
you
what
believe
the
Matt
fucking
Davis
sport.
and Nick Nolte. I mean, it was told in a tale that was a little cartoonish, but yeah.
Well, I mean, but I'm talking about from an organizational perspective. You really got a window into how these assholes really operated behind the scenes. You saw the product on Sundays, but that was it way back then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I don't expect integrity from anything that's governmentally involved, from either political party. I don't believe that, nobody's going to tell me that they're the candidate of change, that it's morning in America. I'm not going to buy any of this shit because it's all, they're liars. But it bothers the hell out of me that I have to rant about this over and over. They're killing players. They deny CTE. They're no different than the tobacco companies who denied the link between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. And people were dying. And you know what they did? They protracted the trials until people died. Oh, I guess we have to throw this one out because he died. That is the kind of stuff that I just can't stand. And integrity. And one more thing before I go. Don't ask me about baseball. I don't care about baseball. I'm never going to talk about baseball in this program ever again. I'm done. That sport is no longer viable. It died somewhere in the past with the ghost of Babe Ruth and the great men who played the game like Hank Aaron. It died. And I don't care what changes they want to make. They want to say, okay, we tried the 7-inning doubleheaders and that didn't work out. Now we're going to have a universal DH they've been screaming about for ages. And, it's still the same boring guy picking his balls and his ass in the outfield, 3 hour and 15-minute death surge. I mean, it's like...
Sorry, Rick. We know it's your lifeline, but sorry.
Not going to do it. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Because every year it's like, well, this is the sport that's in Northeast Ohio. It's like the viewership just is not worth doing a podcast. I will do something else original with my podcast before I talk about baseball. I will dump sports for a period of time or take it from a different angle rather than talk about baseball. And I'm not going to waste my nights watching 3 hours of boredom with a bunch of AA players. A team that's not even fucking serious. Yeah.
Well, like I said, move the whole goddamn thing to Ottawa, call it a day, and maybe the fans can buy back the Indians' name and start over. We did it with the Browns. We can do it again.
Well, I mean, and honestly, I'm not going to sit there and call them the Guardians. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
the Ottawa Guardians. I'll call them the Ottawa Guardians.
Fuck it. I mean, I don't care about the game. I don't care about the team. They've done nothing to make me interested as a fan. Nothing. They don't have any real talent offensively. They don't have any position players who are worth a damn.
They're all gone.
They hope that these younger pitchers will pick up the slack as the other guys aged out and got overused and threw their arms out. This is a Mickey Mouse organization. The Dolans are Mickey Mouse owners. Don't have time.
Fucking Rick.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to go
Guess I'll have to
cornhole.
strengthen my knowledge on the cornhole leagues.
There you go.
Curling,
We're going to go
Rick.
alternate
It's the new
sports.
golf.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. It's going to begin April 7th for you. I'm going to watch the Cavaliers at 8 o'clock get pounded by the Miami Heat. And just so that you know that you heard it here first, remarkably, the Brooklyn Nets are going to have an incredible surge like it started yesterday against the 76ers, and they're going to win like 14 games in a row. And the Cavaliers will be pushed out of the 6th position into the 7th or 8th position to the play-in, so that way it's guaranteed that Kyrie and Durant and, eventually whoever, Ben Simmons, can play and they'll rise up and suddenly just go to the finals. And for anybody who just loves the Cavaliers for what they've accomplished, watch them. Talking about cornholed, watch them get cornholed.
And we already saw the refs are going to treat us in that Sixers game that was kind of rough for us.
Well, I mean, they can get rid of you anytime they want to, and it's all about the name stars, and it's not about, and I know it's a bad break that Jared Allen is gone, but Jared Allen didn't carry any weight. I mean, realistically, nobody knows who he is. And they rated the top 6 young point guards, and Darius Garland was last, below LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball can't even get his team above 500, really.
LaMelo
And he's
Ball.
better. He's better than Darius Garland. It's like, right. And now they're starting to hype, Cade Cunningham's coming around. He could be the rookie of the year. It's wake up. You wake up, Cleveland, you're living in a place that people don't respect at the upper echelons of the league that they play in. Just get used to it. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I'm going to keep cheering for my Cavaliers because I think, hey, I like the underdog. I like the fighting attitude. But in the end, we're going to get ripped off. And I'm telling you that the Nets, because I'm looking what's below, they ain't going to come at us. The Nets are going to be the one that throw us into the play-in. I guarantee it. It's going to go whoop. They're going to win so many games in a row, and you're going to realize this thing is fixed, if you can call this early, this easily. So we'll see what happens. Hold me accountable. When the season ends, you watch the surge of the Nets and how the league arranges it. And if you don't believe me, take a look at the Nets schedule. There ain't no way they're going to lose these games. They're playing a bunch of bow-wow teams. So
Good luck on your papers, Key.
I'll take the play-in because I want the team to get some credit for what they've put in this year. But it's going to be a hard road to hoe. And we need more exposure for our young players on national television. And playing on national television and winning on ESPN and Mobley coming through and Garland coming through is a great thing. They need more of it, more exposure. People don't know who these people are. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again Monday, as we always are, on the next installment of Moohead Radio. And until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Bye.